Hi, my name is Sarah Herzl, and today we are going to do a work with watercolor pencils, and we're going to do a hummingbird in flight. We're going to be using watercolor pencils and a paintbrush for this project. Okay, so we're going to create this beautiful watercolor hummingbird, and before we get started, we're going to talk about some supplies. You're going to take, I use just a board where I can tape down my watercolor paper. I use cold press, and you just want a little bit of texture as opposed to super smooth, but you could use either one, hot press or cold press. You can get that just about anyway, but you want to tape it down because when you add water to it, it's going to start to buckle, and so you want to make sure you keep it in place. And so we're going to start with, we're going to draw our hummingbird. We're going to sketch it out, and then we're going to lighten it a little bit with with a little bit of eraser because we don't want it to show through too much. And then after we use that, we're going to have a sketch, and then we're going to take our watercolor pencils, and we're going to actually draw. We're going to draw the color on our hummingbird, and then the last step is when you actually add the water, and then we'll be using paintbrushes. You can have any selection that you want. I usually have a large one, kind of a medium one, and then one that I can get a point on if I need to. All right? And then we'll just use regular water for that. So let's get started. Once you have your paper all set, you're going to start drawing. Now, your hummingbird can look any way you want. I'm just going to follow my example that I have, and here's how I like to start. I like to center it, and what I do is I just very lightly, see it doesn't have to be perfect, I will just give myself some guidelines. And that way, when I'm drawing, I can go ahead and establish where I want it on the page, and that grid helps me do that. So I just start with simple shapes. And if you will look at this one, there's a couple of shapes here. We've got more of kind of an oval here, and a circle here, and then there's a triangle, and then the wings are triangle. You just start with simple shapes, and then you're going to create it into your hummingbird. So I'm just going to give a really sketchy, more of a circle than an oval, and then I'm going to do another one right up here. That's going to be the head, and then I'm going to do a triangle here. I can change these anytime I want because it looks kind of funny right now. And then I'm going to give a little bit of a triangle here. I'm just establishing where everything goes. So now that I have that, I'm going to come in and I'm going to connect my shapes. The hummingbird has a really, really long beak there. And then I'm going to, my triangle helps me get the tail established where I want it, but the tail's going to go beyond that. And want to get a little bit of a sketchy into it that we can it'll really come to life once we add the color and the water. And then I like to have really big wings. And again, I am not establishing the edge of that, even though it is a triangle. And then I'm going to come back with the one that's on the other side. I'm just going to give a little bit of a sketch so I know where I want it. And then the lengths on a hummingbird are kind of tiny and somewhat, they're significant, yes, but they're not highly functional like regular birds. Really, the only thing that hummingbirds use their feet for is to perch. They don't really walk around or anything like that, so they're really, really small and not very significant, at least from what how we would think birds would use them. And then I'm going to give a little bit of a circle for the eye. Now, all of this will come to life when you start to define it more once you get going with your color. So, as I mentioned before, you're going to get your shape, and then you're going to take this eraser, and you actually now want to make it as light as possible because the pencil line will show through a little bit. At the end, you can erase. You can erase little pencil lines that show up. It'll actually erase through the watercolor pencil marks. But I like to try to get rid of that. And I get rid of my guidelines that are now in the way. I don't want them to show up, or that circle that's in the inside, and just kind of clean things up. So I'm going to show you one that I have right here that I did earlier. And I'm just going to do the same thing because I want to show you how I've added some detail to it so that I can use it to guide how I want to put my watercolor pencils down. So you can see here, I've come in and given a little bit of shape to the head, which will be a different color from the throat. So it's barely noticeable, I know, but it's right in there. And that means it's going to give some definition for right in here, and then this, the throat that's going to be red. And then I'll go in at a later time with actually the watercolor pencils to add detail, but I want that as my guide. All right? So now that we have our drawing, we're ready to put down our color. Now you can choose any colors you want, and you can use any set of watercolors that you want. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in this green with a couple of different greens on the top of the head. So you use it just like you would use colored pencils. You just come in, add. I always kind of do a little bit of an outline first, so I can kind of sense where the color is going to go. And then I'm just going to draw it in. I'm going to avoid the eye. I don't want any of my green going in my eye space. I do the eye at the very end. And then I'm just going to add my color. Like I said, just like you were using it for a colored pencil. I like to sketch a little bit versus making it, very definitive, because at any time I can change the shape. And so once I have that established, I'm going to choose another green. And that green could be really any kind of a blue green or a lighter green. And then when we add the water to this, you're going to see that it blends those colors. So you can do it on top of what you just put down and beside. And then just kind of fill in some areas. And then I do want just a little hit of yellow at the very top. May not happen in real life for hummingbirds, but I like to give a little bit of a highlight up there. So now you can see that I've established, I've got the green and added some blue-green in there as well. I'm going to do the red throat now with my color. And again, you can use a couple of different colors. I'm going to go a little more of an orange. I'm using this red-orange right here. When it's closer to the eye, I want it just a little bit lighter. And it's going to have an edge to the green, but not a distinct edge. We'll take care of that when we add our water to it. And then I just come in here. You can make this heavy, or you can make it light. So just know that when you're pressing down heavy, you're putting more of the color onto the paper, and therefore when you add the water, it's going to spread a little bit more than if you were doing it really light. I'm going to pick another red to come in here. That's a little bluer red, and I'm just going to fill in. I'm kind of making a little bit of a shape now to the throat area, and then afterwards, you can always kind of go back and add more if you need to. So now that I have that, I'm going to go to the tail. Those are the two areas I do first because they really establish my color palette. And I start with a little bit of lighter green here at the tip of it where it meets the body. And I'm just going to do a series of different colors. And I'm using a stroke because, more of a longer stroke, because that will actually show through when you add the water. I keep talking about adding water. We will get to that. And so you're just going to add a little bit. Since I have this color, I'm going to go ahead and do the top of this wing because it has a little bit of that warm yellow-green in there. And then I'm going to go in with a couple of other blue greens, and then I'll go back to my standard green. There it is, the one that I used on the head. You want to make sure that you start repeating the colors that you have in other places because that's going to give, it's going to bring things together, make it more cohesive. There's no really need to use a whole bunch of colors on it. As long as you kind of get something going, then you can kind of run with that and repeat it in different places. That's kind of what happens in nature, so we will do that in our drawing. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and add a little bit, just a little bit of the pencil in here to establish the belly area. So I'm going to do that with a very light color. I'm going to come in, it's a more of a kind of a cool gray, and I will give it a line that I can pull from, and I will pull that color up into the center of that body when I get to that point. A little bit up here at the top, and that's kind of all we need. Now the wings are more interpretive. You don't want them to come across too heavy because then that would kind of weigh down our hummingbird. So that's why I didn't establish too many lines in it in the initial sketch. What you're going to do is you're going to put the color pencil at the base here, and you're going to pull some out, just draw some out. Same over here. And then you're going to do the rest of the shape with the water. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to use a nice blue, maybe a blue purple. And I'm going to go right in, and I'm going to pull it all the way up on the top of it. I'm going to give more color. But I really want to establish where it meets the body and make sure I have enough pigment there to pull into the wings when I get to that point. So you are semi-establishing the shape that you want, but the rest is going to be done with your brush. You can introduce other colors in here that you want to blend, and I can show you that as well. Right now this color is a little bit of a blue, a purple blue, and so I go in and with a more standard blue. I think this one is just basic blue, and we're going to put that on top of it. So when you layer with the colored pencils, it also will pull out a unique, different color when you add water. So it's kind of fun to think about that. And you also want to make sure that you want to not do complementary colors per se next to each other unless you're wanting a really nice brown, because that's what they'll make. Now I do have, speaking of brown, I do have it at the tip of this wing. Kind of adds a nice little interest to our visual. It comes right in here and a little bit in there, and that'll be fun to pull into our wings. I'll do a little bit over here too. Okay, so we're looking pretty sketchy right now, but that's okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get that beak going. So it's a really long beak. You can do a couple of things. You can use black, which I've used here. This is black, and I go in with a little bit of brown afterwards. Or you can actually start with the brown, which is a little softer. So if you start with the brown, you'll get, obviously it won't be as distinct and dark, but it also has a really nice look. So I'm going to put the black right in here, give it an edge. And remember, it's really long. And I'm going to put a little bit in there. And then I'm just going to sketch a little bit in because I don't want it to be too dark. And then I'll go in with my brown, so I get more of a neutral color, but not too dark. So now I have established my colors where I want them. Like I said, you can go back once it dries a little bit and you can add more, and I'll show you how to do that. So I would like for us now to talk about how we add our water to our color pencils. So I've got a little board here that I wanted to take a minute, and I'm going to show you what it looks like when you add that water, and then the fact is that you really don't need a whole lot of water. So let me just bring this closer. And so these are just, this is a heavier hand, more firm, and this is a light. I'm just going to add a little bit of water to that. And like you see that I'm adding water, and then on the paper towel, I just dry it a little bit. And you're just going to go, I need a little bit more, and you're just going to go lay it on top of that. And I'm not brushing yet. I'm just putting it on there so that it's starting to activate, and then I can pull it forward. So you can see how you get a nice color there. Now the difference with a lighter touch is simply it's going to be obviously a paler color to begin with. So this one starts darker and then goes lighter. This one is going to stay pretty uniform. So again, all the colors will do similarly. There are colors that activate more successfully with water than others, but you can see how that works. The last one I'm going to do is right here. These right here, and it's when you kind of put if you put two colors next to each other or close to each other, and how you make that work. So you're going to give water to both, and every time I put my paintbrush back into a different color or touch the paper, I'm going to put it back in my water. So I want to get rid of what I was just painting, and then I'm going to go and activate the blue, just like that. And now you're going to do the combination where you're just pulling it to each other. So then you have the merging and blending of colors. So that's why we put colors side by side. If you put colors on top of each other, that's going to automatically give you a third color. But this will give you a blend between. All right? So now let's get started. So we have our, our drawing here. I'm going to start with the head of our hummingbird right in here. And because I want this to dry right in here faster than the other, because when I go in and put the color next to it, I don't want it to bleed together. So we're going to start with the green. Again, a little bit of water. You don't need a lot. You just want to activate it. And I'm dotting it in. Just in a few places before I draw it all together. Because you don't want to pull it all up right away. Kind of a little bit of a jagged edge there because it is actually blending in with those feathers. We just don't want it to bleed into those feathers that are red. And you want a little bit of you do want a distinct shape around that eye. So now what I'm going to do, cleaning my brush off, I'm going to pull the rest of that color. So I want it lighter right up here, and I want it to blend with that yellow a little bit, but I don't want it to go any further. So now I have the green. Now what you can do, if you feel like it's too wet, you can go in and get as much water off your brush as possible, and you can go just touch areas, and it's going to soak up some of that water into the brush, and you'll have a lighter area. You can put a piece of towel on it and soak it up. I prefer to have more control over where it goes because I don't want to pull all of it up. I just want to pull some of it up. All right, so now once you do that, you're going to switch colors. I'm going to go to the tail because I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Same thing, we're just going to keep going. Getting it wet. And then you can use just water in areas, and it just kind of bleeds forward and blends. Okay. Now one thing I'm going to show you that we haven't done yet, now that I've got a couple of areas you can see how it works, is if you see on this one, I've got a background color. I just chose just kind of a general kind of nice bright blue. and I have blended it into the background very lightly. And then at the end, if you want to have a little bit of texture, I just kind of did a little bit of splattering on it. So the best way to do that is to go ahead and wet the paper. I'm just going to do it right down here. You're just adding water. Be careful of the areas that you've already added colored pencil to, because you don't want it to be activated yet. I'm just pulling it off to the edge. I'm just going to show you this bottom part so you can see how it goes. And then now that I have that, here's the tip that I want to show you. I'm going to take my blue. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put water. I'm going to actually run the tip of my pencil on my paintbrush, and it's going to transfer pigment to my paintbrush. So I do it off to the side, and you'll just test it out how much you want to show, or how much pigment you want. And then I'm just going to touch it in there. And you see how it just spreads in that area. And you can keep doing it if you want it darker. You can add more if you just want it in certain areas. You can also then start painting with the water. So I got a little bit of color there. And now I'm just going to take just plain water and move it around. So I won't do that everywhere on this one, but you can see on my my first example, I pulled it out to the edges. I made it darker in some areas. You can do that a little bit later, but just kind of give it an overall color atmosphere. And that's how you do that. So where you didn't add water, that's where it's going to stop. I think that's kind of a fun technique. Now we're going to go to the wings while this dries a little bit. Same paintbrush. You can use another one if you want to, but this one is working well for me. And then this is where I'm going to actually turn it a little bit, because it's easier for me to get to, and I don't want to go over the area. And so what I'm doing is, and you please do it yourself, is like as you're working on different areas of your artwork, really any artwork, turn your paper or what you're working on when you need to. You don't have to get in an awkward position to do it. Just turn it. And so I'm just going to go in and activate our bluish purple. So what I want to point out here, now that I've got it activated, I'm actually getting, again, clean water, and now I'm going to pull it. I'm pulling it forward and making those wings. So the feathers have a very light feel. You can even add more water to it to make it even lighter. Just want you to see them. And just kind of using broad strokes, you'll get something that's a little bit more spontaneous. We're going to activate that brown now, because we want it to hold together, both cases. And then just plain water, you can go in and move things around. Soften an edge, pull it forward, anything like that. Once you have it established, you can make adjustments. Even when it dries, you can go in and add some definition to it if you want to. You just want to make sure you activate all of the colored pencil at this point. So just like that. And then I left that little green part until the very end, just because I want to then go in with the other wing, which is right here. I'm going to do that one before I do that middle part. So I want to get a nice edge in there so it's not going to bleed together. And if it bleeds together with the other color, don't worry about it. That's what watercolor does, really. So it's just going to add a little bit more of a different look for your piece. And there's nothing wrong with that. All right, so I have that established. I'm going to go back to this area right here where I didn't put a whole lot of colored pencil. I probably will go add a little bit more at some point. But this area right here is going to get a little bit different. Actually, I'm actually going to do our red breast right now, with red throat, and just activate that. This is where it may bleed into your background that we just did. It is going to blend in a little with the green, and that's okay. Now we've got a really, really bright color here. I'm going to pull some of that up. And like I said, I dried off my paintbrush just a little bit and pulling some of that color up. I can add it back if I want to, but I just want it to dry a little bit faster. I don't want it so soupy. Now I'm going to do the belly area. All I'm doing is just adding a little bit of water to activate that gray. I probably will end up adding a little bit more to it, kind of blending it. I just want it to have a little bit of color. I'll probably end up going and putting a darker edge to it as well. I haven't done the feet yet. I'll probably just do those with a little extra colored pencil. And you see how I accidentally picked up some of that red right there? That's going to happen. Don't worry about it. You can pick up some of that with a dry brush. Or you can just change your mind and incorporate that into your final piece, because that's what watercolor does. I love these pencils. They are easy to work with. You don't have to spend a lot of money on a brand. You can use kind of any brand you want and experiment. But it's fun to have a drawing turn into a painting. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the beak, and I want to use the tip. I'm going to use the tip of this paintbrush right here, because I want to make sure that I don't put too much water there, and I want to pull it forward. And so I'm just going to just use a little bit of water. Okay, now once we establish that, I want to show you one thing that I'm going to do on this green right here, because this is dry, and you only do it when it's dry. You can actually go and use the technique. We're going to work on this area right in here. Use the technique where you're kind of adding water to the pencil. You can also wet your pencil and use that. I don't like that technique as much. I like this one best. So I'm going to get some, I want you to see how this works. I'm just going to add, it's not as dark as I want it to be. So I'm going in and actually adding it more on there. And you can do any color on top of this so that you can have more pigment to work with. And then I can just move it around just a little bit, just like I did. Once it dries, you can go on top of it. But wait till it dries, because if you're trying to do it while it's still wet, it's just going to blend or get muddy, especially if you're putting a different color, a darker color on top. And I would do the same for the wings. As soon as I find my blue, there we go. Again, the same technique. We're going to get some pigment on our brush. You can test it out on the paper to see how dark it is, and go in and add a little bit more darkness. Be sure to hold your pencil by the side, not on top, because it's potentially it could just drip on there. We're going to get that little area of green that we didn't get to with just a little bit of water. I'm going to turn it this way so I can reach it better. Just pull it forward a little bit. I'm going to pick up some of my added green. At some point you'll want it to start drying, so you can go in and add details. So like I said, if you see a wet area, you can go kind of just pull it up with your paintbrush. Okay. So you can see right here, you can see some of my pencil line. Once this dries, I can go in and erase. And then I can also go in, I'll show you on this one. I can also go in and add dry pencil back on top if I want a crisp edge. So I can go in here and just hit it with the dry pencil. And I don't necessarily, I can then activate this again, or I could just leave it. And an area that actually that works pretty well at is, again, in this tail. If I want to add something that looks a little bit more linear in there, then I can go and add that. And I'm not necessarily going to go and wet it. And you can see I added a little bit right here at the top. Now we're going to do the eye. The eye, you want to do that last because it's a very small area and you do not want that to bleed. And you want to have a little white around it. So I'd always do that last, because right now he looks blind, but he's really not. So I'm going to get my black pencil or a dark pencil. Let me talk a little bit more about the eye. So if you see in here, I have the eye shape, but I also left a couple little white spots in it. The reason why you do that is you want it to look like it's the hummingbird is alive. If you did it solid black, it's gonna just have it kind of a dead look, quite honestly. So you just want to hit a little highlight, because our pupils, really any of us, animals, humans, whatever, is going to be reflecting some of the light. So you're going to have that. So just think about it in terms of getting your shape in here. Just like most birds, it's just a very simple circle shape. You're going to go in, and then you're just going to leave some white area. You can do with just one, or you can do the two. We typically have a couple of highlights in our eyes, but you can do this one. And now you can see that our hummingbird here is alive and looking at us and is much happier. Now, we could work on this a whole lot more, but I want to go back to our final and see how I added some pencil in around the eye. Because if you look at, and feel free to use research or reference as you're working on your piece, because it'll help you with some of the details. I went in and kind of established right in here, and a little bit in there, and then around the eye, there's a little darkening when you look at it. And then I also added in this area, the feathers can be a little bit, they'll catch the light, they're a little iridescent. So I just represented that with a few darker spots. So in this one, as I mentioned, we're going to go in and get a little darker. I'm going to do that with dry pencil. This isn't quite dry yet, So it's, you're gonna see that it gets a little muddy. But I would crisp that, I call it crisping up. I would crisp that up when it's completely dry. But we're gonna go in and add a little detail and on our feathers, on our belly. Same technique as I was using before. I'm going to get a little of the gray, and I'm just going to add a few marks. You might want to experiment with this on a side piece of paper, because adding little marks is a lot harder than it sounds. You have to be spontaneous, but still have it go where you want it to go. And if you don't like it, at this point, you can go pull it up. It may not completely get rid of it, but it'll lighten it enough that you don't notice it. So you can do that. All right. Now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add in, well, one of the last things we're going to add in our little feet here. One of those is in the front and the other one is in the back. And I usually just kind of leave them alone. I might decide to add some water to them at another time, because I don't want to be too much of an emphasis. Now you notice on this one, I did that background color all over. I'm not going to do this on this one, just I wanted to kind of demonstrate that, but I will show you if you want to add kind of just a little bit of a kind of an interest or texture. You can take your pencil and use my smaller brush. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get some pigment on it. And I'm just going to hit it on my finger. I have to try a couple of times just to make sure you like what you see. Now if it's super wet, you can get bigger ones, bigger dots. You can try any technique you want, but this is the one that I have, since I have a little bit more control over. And then you can add that, or you can just let it, you know, like we were trying not to do, let it drip on there. All right, and then once you're done with playing around with it, you're going to have a finished piece worth framing. Thank you very much.